I'll give you an example, Suresh. Today we have 400 people, and our own team is in 45 countries and 60 nationalities. And I haven't met 90% of my people face to face ever.
In your case, you don't have a problem because you actually have a legal entity. You can onboard your employees on your own platform.
World is going to go global. That was very clear in my head because we live in a world where talent crunch is so prevalent. There is a contrary report which says by 2030 there will be a skill talent shortage of 70 million skill talent. That will lead to a revenue loss of $8.5 trillion. Now these are big numbers. These are bigger than combined economy of Germany and Japan. So that was very clear. The world is going to go global because a country like Singapore does not have talent and they need talent.
Hello everyone, welcome to SaaSBoomi's Founders Deep Dive Podcast. We've been doing this for quite some time now, probably more than 18 months now. We have had a lot of founders come and share deep insights on how they run their company. Today with us, we have the founder of Multiplier, Sagar, who's in Singapore, joining us with the SaaSBoomi Podcast. Welcome, Sagar.
Hi, Suresh. Hello, everyone. Very nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's wonderful, Sagar. I think this is, in a way, special because I don't think we had anyone from Singapore joining SaaSBoomi Podcast. I'm doing this is season 2 actually. So I don't think I remember doing anyone from Singapore. So super special in that sense. But what I want to do is let you take like 2-3 minutes and explain what is Multiplier, because a lot of our audience won't know about this. In fact, I was actually doing research on your company only for this podcast and got to know a lot about it. In fact, I was just thinking that we should be using this actually. So I was just like, back of the mind, I was just thinking like, why my team is not figuring it out. I think I'm probably going to do an introduction later after this call.
Privileged to be the first guest from Singapore, although I'm very much Indian. So Multiplier essentially is a global employment platform that helps companies employ talent globally in 150 countries without having to set up their legal entities or worry about payroll, benefits, taxes, and so on and so forth. So what we enable companies to employ talent anyone, anywhere in few minutes without worrying about the compliance, labor laws of those markets. So we don't do recruitment. The companies will find their own talent, but then we'll help with every aspect of employment, whether it's employment contract, payroll, benefits, taxes, social contributions. So today we are roughly 400 people across the globe, and we work with more than 1,000 plus companies. They use us for various use cases. For example, we have a lot of customers in India SaaS where they sell their products in US, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia by hiring salespeople on our legal entities so that they never have to go and open their offices. The other use case, again, for us, the biggest market is for any SaaS company is US. For us, the biggest market is US as well. And the biggest use case is talent crunch. So if you look at today's world, in developed market, there are lots and lots of jobs, but not enough talent. So what we enable is you can be an American company now, but you don't have to hire every talent in the US. You can hire engineers in India, Serbia. You can hire marketing talent in Australia. So we enable companies to employ the right talent, not just in their geography, but anywhere in the world.
I was actually going to, because I was looking at your website and it said hired, and I was actually going to ask you, do you also do recruitment? Then you already preempted that question. One obvious clarification that comes to my mind is we have employees outside of India in other countries and stuff like that. Especially, we ended up setting up legal entities. Two interrelated questions. First, where is the legal relationship for the employee? Who's actually employing, right? So from a legally, because if I don't have a legal entity, let's say we want to hire someone in Philippines, right? So we don't have a legal entity there. Who does the legally binding contract is enforced. One, two, most of the guys, employees, right? How do they feel about not if they are not part of the like KissFlow, for example? How do they feel about it? Because we did have that problem. We like, for example, in Middle East, we were using a HR firm who we pay them, and we pay them some commission. On top of that, they do the processing and everything. But then after some time, they feel like they're not sort of connected to the, because they have the visas of the local HR firm and so on. So how do you deal with these things?
I think that's a very interesting question, Suresh. Thanks for asking that. So, I think the fundamental premise of international employment is to employ somebody legally in a country, you must have a legal entity in that country. Like that's the fundamental premise. Let's say you took an example of Philippines. If you want to employ somebody in Manila, in Philippines, you need to have a legal entity there. You need to have a bank account to be able to pay them. You need to have payroll people, HR people, and so on and so forth. So what Multiplier does, it removes the need for you to open that setup, because we have gone ahead and created that setup in 150 countries ourselves. So we have legal entities, payroll, benefit, taxes, employment contracts, and bank accounts in all these countries. So as and when you need to use that infrastructure in any market, you can just use our software platform and access that infrastructure without having to open yours. Now, legally speaking, that employee is on our payroll, right? Because the legal entity belongs to Multiplier. But here's the most important part of today's world of work and employment. I think gone are the days where whose name appeared on a long employment contract with terms and conditions determined who you actually worked for, right? I'll give you an example, Suresh. Today we have 400 people. Our own team is in 45 countries and 60 nationalities. And I haven't met 90% of my people face to face ever. When we talk about today's world of work, it's distributed, it's international, and it's remote, right? So, if you think about
In your case, you don't have a problem because you actually have a legal entity. You can onboard your employees on your own platform. So like our employees, for example, they take pride in it is the emotional quotient, right? Like see, you can be sort of yeah, in some sense being living together with someone, but you still have to being attaching a wife or an husband title actually makes a lot more difference. It's a mentally, it means something for people, right? Like tying this mangal, what they call in Tamil tali or mangal sutra or whatever it is. It's a very symbolic. It probably doesn't mean much in a true relationship, but that symbolic thing seems to have a lot more emotional value, and that's what I was also wondering when I for me it didn't matter. So yeah, I think, see, people, especially I think people who are used to remote first global employment mindset, they won't have a problem. But when I'm hiring somebody in the region, especially we are hiring salespeople in the region, because we are doing in-market enterprise sales, right? So then we need people who understand the region to go to enterprise customers and talk to them. So when we hire those people, these are not necessarily progressive people. They have the experience, they have everything, but their mindset need not, they have the connections, relationships, they know the market, but their mindset may not be progressive. Their mindset may not be like remote first. So that is where actually we ended up facing some challenges. I think that also naturally opens up the question into ICP, right? So looks like your ICP is a company which is like a remote mindset, remote first rather, remote first kind of a mindset, and the employees also will be like that, and stuff like that would really suit really well. I'm not saying the other cases are not a good fit, but other cases, there may be resistance, there may be easiness from the company employer side. From the employee side, there will be a lot of questions, who's answerable and all these things, right?
Let me take 2 minutes to even further double down on that, Suresh, because more often than not, these are the employees that ask their employers to use Multiplier to employ them, right? I think that's very important.
But how does that happen? Because Meaning multiplier is not like a common consumer brand for an employee to come and say, what, go use multiplier. That sounds too much of a stretch, right? To
First of all, let's talk about what multiplier enables, right? Multiplier enables an employee to be able to now dream about opportunities that are anywhere in the world, right? Our biggest workforce on our payroll is in India and Philippines. I mean, that is just very obvious because of the macro environment, right? Now, that person in India who's working for an American company and getting paid much more than what they were supposed to get paid in India, that is what we enabled, right? Now, this employee could dream about working for an American company sitting out of India because multiplier exists. Because that American company was not going to open an entity in India and open themselves to a can of worms. I mean, you would be surprised. 70% of our revenue comes from US, Suresh. And I'm sure, we are a proud customer of KissFlow. I'm sure you have a big presence in US as well. If you know American customers, they're not comfortable opening themselves to legal liabilities in developing markets, whether it's India or Indonesia and Philippines. So alternatively, these jobs would have gone to countries where they feel comfortable opening offices. You take an example of India, Suresh. You open an entity. If you want to shut down your business in India, it takes roughly 3-4 years, and you're open to all kinds of liabilities from all kinds of ministries. The Americans are quite scared of that. I mean, the Western audience is not a big fan of of ease of doing business in developing countries, right? That is one part. The second part is how incentives, right? If you are on a multiplier payroll, the insurance, the benefits that you get are much better and much more cost effective for the employer because we get to buy those at bulk. That's again a very, very important element for the employee and employer because they are able to provide extremely better insurance to employees at an extremely cost effective rate. Now, talking about ICP, right? Suresh, what is important is we have so many use cases, right? We work with companies such as Amazon and Orange and so on and so forth. They use us to employ people off payroll in the same country, even though when they have a legal entity, right? So if you think about all the top MNCs, they need to maintain a certain level of their workforce at contingent workforce, which is not on their payroll, but on a third party payroll, even though they have a legal entity in that market. When you talk about a fast growing tech company, for them, there are two use cases. One is they either want access to talent in a different market or they want access to demand, which is they'll hire salespeople in that market just to test the market. All right. For example, Suresh, you want to test out Colombia market. Now, you won't go and open a legal entity just to test out for one salesperson. It doesn't make sense for you. It's very expensive. You have to put in paid up capital. You need to get licenses and so on and so forth. It's very painful. So that's the right setup for you to use multiplier.
No, I totally agree. See, there are two ICPs here. One is companies like us who have clarity that we need an operation there and we don't want to incur the overheads. Then it's a very straight fit, right? So you find something like multiplier, just go use it. I think that's not a problem at all. And then the second use case is like I'm a remote employee.
Yeah.
And I'm just applying for a US company and I know something like multiplier exists. So even if that company doesn't know, I'll go and tell the company, hey, you can just go to multiplier and use that and it should be fine.
Exactly.
And so that's that there actually the demand side actually sells your product,
Yeah.
right? In some sense. It's awesome actually. So this makes life easy. In many ways, it's like a shared services business, except that the shared services is often belong to a single brand. Like they typically consolidate all the HR shared services. Companies like Genpact and Quattro and all those in India, they used to do this, but this is like shared services like third party, right? It's like a third party shared services infrastructure for things like HR services and stuff like that. It's a very simple way. So why is this like a SaaS business?
So Suresh, maybe let me answer this question in two parts. One is why I started this business, and second,
Yeah,
why.
in fact, I wanted to ask that.
Yeah.
It's good. Like I also in that time also tell a little bit about your team and how did you guys start the business and why you start the business. Tell a little bit about the background. Plus,
Yeah.
why are you in Singapore?
Yeah, maybe then I start with that and then connect you to why we
Yeah,
are a SaaS business. I think that's a very important question. So
yeah.
again, I was born and brought up in India. I come from a small place in Maharashtra called Nagpur. I grew up there, and then
Actually, famous for oranges, right?
famous for oranges. So it's the orange city of.
And my company name is Orangescape, so I have some connection to Nagpur.
So, if I'm in, my family also has orange. I mean, everybody has orange farms. That's the. So then I graduated from IIT Bombay. I studied there, and then I worked for a Japanese investment bank called Nomura for a couple of years. I was in Tokyo. Then they moved me to Singapore as an expat, and then I spent 3 years there. Then worked for a startup as a head of finance for a couple of years, where I was in charge of international expansion as well. And that's where the story of Multiplier starts. So I was expanding to Australia. It took me 8 months to open a bank account in Australia. And, as Multiplier, Sequoia was a big investor in last startup as well. And they asked me all sorts of questions. Hey, I need these details from Sequoia. And being a fund, they can't provide those details. So it was almost a nightmare to set up business in a developed market by any measure, such as Australia. Then I went and did that in Japan. And Japan is kind of like a second home for me, Suresh. It was extremely even more difficult. So if setting up businesses in developed markets of Asia is so difficult, you can imagine how difficult it would be to do that in developing markets such as Indonesia, Philippines, and so on and so forth. And world is going to go global. That was very clear in my head because we live in a world where talent crunch is so prevalent. There is a contrary report which says by 2030 there will be a skill talent shortage of 70 million skill talent. That will lead to a revenue loss of $8.5 trillion. Now these are big numbers. These are bigger than combined economy of Germany and Japan. Right? So that was very clear. The world is going to go global because a country like Singapore does not have talent. And they need talent. A country like US does not have enough talent. They need talent. So world is going to go global to access talent. And I firsthand experienced how broken is global. So global is broken. World is going to go global. There has to be a better solution to go global. Whether you go global in pursuit of new demand or in pursuit of new talent, there has to be a better solution. That's where I started Multiplier. Now, that is what Multiplier enables. You can sell your product to US tomorrow. You can hire somebody in US tomorrow. You can access the talent in US. You can whatever, right? So on and so forth. Now, how do you enable that, right? A good analogy, Suresh, here for our audience would be when I used to be a banker, we used to have massive server rooms. Like we had big server teams, server rooms, server infrastructure, right? Now that was a non-core function to our business. Today that doesn't exist. Today you have phenomenal cloud solutions such as GCP, Azure, and so on and so forth, right? So the infrastructure is gone, the server teams are gone, and that entire backend function has become a SaaS solution in a way, right? Now it's a SaaS solution, right? Similarly, today companies have massive HR ops function, which is not core to their business. They have massive entities, which are not core to their business. I mean, you don't wake up and say, I'm going to open one more entity tomorrow and feel excited about it. But you feel excited about getting 10 more customers, right? So what we are saying is Multiplier is a business solution that will remove the need for you to have HR ops team, that will remove the need for you to have legal entities, payroll teams, and so on and so forth. And it's an infrastructure SaaS that will fit in your business from day one and will take care of everything payroll, benefit, compliance, backend. Today, Suresh, we have customers in 45 countries and we provide this service in 150 countries. How do you deliver that as a services firm? It is absolutely impossible. So we have created a software platform where in 1 minute You can come, onboard a talent, give them insurance in any country. I'm talking about 150 countries, right? You can come and generate, store, and sign a multilingual employment contract, provide them with laptops, take care of their payroll, benefit, taxes, payments, all via one platform. So that's how powerful the multiplier platform is.
So if you really look at ADP also provides exactly the same services from try to solve exactly the same problem, but may not be doing it like the way you are doing it. Like it's a difference between enterprise software and SaaS, for example, right? Like so they are like the old school enterprise ERP software, and probably you could be something the more modern, it's like employing a taxi service conventionally versus using Uber. Like the paradigm is very different. Is that a good analogy to think about? Because even ADP is there in all the countries. Literally, they probably exist in like more than 100 countries for sure, and they do payroll processing, they do all the compliance and everything. I don't know whether they do contract employment, the legal entity part. I don't know whether they do that part. Whether hiring the employees on their payroll and then processing, maybe they do that also. I don't know.
So Suresh, ADP does not do it today. When I was starting Multiplier, I looked at the profit pool and P&L of ADP, and I was again very motivated to start this business. And I used to run payroll in my last company, and we used all the service providers, right? So that even motivated more to me to start this business. So ADP does not do it. The right analogy of this would be like the Kelly Adecco Randstads of the world.
Randstad, yeah. Randstad is a customer of KissFlow actually. They use in Switzerland and UK. I think there are two countries they use. I don't know. I lost touch of what they use for now, but
so they are the good analogy for us. But I mean, make no mistake, our full focus is on global payroll market. We are launching, in fact, this quarter end, we are launching the second product, which is even if you have entity, we can take care of your payroll, benefit, taxes, employment contract, leave expense, everything, even if you have entity. So we have quite a few customers now. We are going to say, hey, you are using us for international markets. Don't worry, we can now take care of your local markets. Obviously, it comes as a different price point. So we are getting into that space ourselves. I think, Suresh, what is important is payroll is the last.
So you'll basically displace ADP.
We intend to.
Hopefully, or basically, would you OEM your platform to ADP? What if ADP comes and says, because one of the things is like ADP systems are so old and so boring, and they have a very big internal systems, and I know some point in time they tried to use KissFlow and build an internal application, like 2-3 years ago. I don't know, like where they ended up. I think they tried, but I don't think we started any engagement. But at the time when I looked at their systems, like they were pretty old. Like they're still talking about files and stuff like that. some CSV files, processing stuff. Like, you was talking about FTP. Can you give me this file in FTP format? What? I was like, okay. Anyway, cool. This is pretty nice. So, but tell us the journey of. I know you got like some 77 million funding on something like that, and that's like massive. Tell us your journey. Tell us first is like the product market fit part.
Yeah.
And and then the first round of funding and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And who are your co-founders, by the way?
Payroll is the last industry where there is any innovation that has happened. We want to completely change the payroll. We want to make payroll an employee-driven phenomena. So payroll should just happen. Nobody should do payroll. Especially there should not be any team at the employer side that should do payroll. So payroll should be an employee-driven phenomena. It should be a continual phenomena. You can do your payroll any point in month, and it should be a payments powered phenomena. So let's say we are sitting on 22nd. You want to do your payroll today. You can do that yourself, and you can get money for the 22 days or 24 days or 5 days or 6 days, and you can decide whether you want that money in your SBI account, or your Canada Bank account, or your, let's say, Revolut account, right? So that's
So when you say you can decide as an employer or you as an employee.
employee. So what we are building, what we are going towards is moving payroll to an employee-driven phenomena and removing that responsibility from an employer. So we're building a payroll and a payments engine.
Aren't there these fintech companies which are providing like this option for employees to cash? Is somewhat similar to that, right? Like for example, I want my 30th salary on 15th, and the fintech companies know for sure this guy is been getting the salary and he'll surely get that salary, and they can prepay him, like it's like basically like a loan, right?
Early salary, yeah, it's called early salary. So that will
Yeah.
that should tell you that there's a demand for folks wanting to get their salary in the middle of the month.
The demand is definitely there because if you look at companies, we have something like salary advances.
Yes.
So we give 2-3 months salary advances, part of the employment itself.
Yeah.
But that is, in fact, it comes from the company. It goes interest free.
Yes.
Like normally, companies don't charge interest for that.
Correct.
But the competition there is not another company. I was always wondering when the fintech companies launched this. I always thinking, aren't they company competing with the salary advance? Is the competition, right? The alternative for the customer is not another company.
Correct.
But you just go to the company and ask for a salary advance for 2 months. They'll probably give most of them. I mean, we give.
They would love to. They would love to, but the infrastructure does not exist in each country to properly account for in company, properly account for it, and a policy and so on.
So how do you deal with all the legalities? Like for example, let's say a company starts and then they suddenly fault or something.
Yeah.
Right, but you have left with employees on your payroll.
Yeah.
And technically you are responsible for those companies there, and you only have a contracting agreement between your company and the company which engaged them.
Yes.
And legal liabilities here are higher inherently, right? So how do you deal with that? So which means it also forces you to not onboard companies after a certain level of thresholds and stuff like that. Like you can't do like SMB companies, because SMB companies have a closure rate of 30 to 40%. They tend to close. Like we can see that in our cancellations and churns, right? If you look at an enterprise customer, the churn is 0. If you look at an SMB segment, the churn is like 30%, right? So how do you deal with that?
Very correctly pointed out, we take that legal liability, but there are ways in which we protect ourselves, right? And so few points, that is, one is we have a very strong KYB and a KYC process. We won't work with you until you pass your KYB.
What does KYB means?
Know your business and know your customer. So we would require all the documentation from you and so on and so forth. The second thing that we do is, before we let out any employment contract outside, you need to deposit with us the 1 to 3 months of salary based on notice period of that employment agreement. So let's say you're hiring somebody in Philippines, you give a notice period of 3 months. Even before we start doing business, you'll have to deposit 3 months of their salaries with us, right? So that in case you default, we can give the notice period to that person and pay that money even if you don't pay us. The third is, we also collect salary in the first week of the month. So let's say if you are paying this employee on 25th of the month, you would have to pay us in the first or second week of the month, so that we can pay this employee. And so again, over the period, we have now created more efficient systems and so on and so forth. So we can figure out, like, let's say we work with a lot of Indian conglomerates like Aditya Birla and all of that. Those companies will always ask for payment terms, and you will have no choice but to give payment terms. But if you are an SME, then we will ask for more deposit and so on and so forth to protect ourselves.
Because if you're able to collect 3 months in advance and 1 month in advance, this is a big rotation business.
Right. Our cash flow always looks very happy, and our working capital is always very happy.
Yeah, there is like the huge cash flow spinner, right? Like it is an amazing. You're probably making enough money on, if you do cash management, proper cash management, you can even make money on that.
No, I come from investment banking background, so I'm well versed with.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, you were going to talk about the team and everything. Yeah.
So Suresh, somewhere around mid of 2020, I was I was in my last startup. I was working as a head of finance. Was also backed by Sequoia. I was managing board and so on and so forth. I realized that I was, it was a real estate startup, and COVID happened, and obviously because of COVID effects, it was not doing so well. I thought I want to leave, and I reached out to one of my closest friends, Rohit, who's also at Sequoia, who's on my board. We studied together. He's from IIT Bombay as well. I said, "Hey, Rohit, I would really love to move out and start something of my own." So I ideated this idea with him a couple of times. In fact, I wanted to do it alone, but then he recommended, "Hey, why don't you get a couple of co-founders as well?" So I have two co-founders. One is Vamsi, who is my batchmate from IIT as well. He has been in Singapore since 2014, product and tech through and through. He takes care of our engineering, product, data, and design team. Then my second co-founder, his name is Amritpal Singh. He's a fourth generation Singaporean Indian. He comes from, he's a chartered accountant by profession from London, but then he moved into Corn Ferry, Robert Walters, where, Suresh, to your point, he was leading the contracting desk. So he saw firsthand how much money is in this business. So when I pitched this idea to him, he was very happy to quit his job and come and join me. So I got this team together somewhere in August 2020. Somewhere around September, October, Sequoia did our seed round, and I'm still in my last company, by the way. They haven't let me go yet. So I left that company in November, and then I registered Multiplier in November. But I have a seed capital of $4 million from Sequoia and other investors. Then we launched our product in March 2021, which was our MVP. We get a couple of customers. Again, Amrit chimes in. He has a phone book of CHROs and CFOs. He calls them. People like our product. Then we launched full-fledged product in August 2021. And September 2021 turns out to be a good month. Then Sequoia does Series A for us. December that year. Again, the business continues to do well. We reached Series B. We have Sequoia, Tiger, DST, and so on and so forth.
You have a long list of investors, right?
Yeah.
Right? I saw like Gemini or something. Gemini, Picus.
Yeah. So that is DST. Gemini is DST, and
DST, Tiger, Sequoia.
Yeah.
Amrish, I don't know who's Amrish. Dipinder.
Amrish is the CEO of Pine Labs, Suresh.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Dipinder Goyal also is there.
Yeah. So I think you raised a very important point, how we realized product market fit. So Suresh, our first 20 customers, 60% of them were also from US. And me and Amrit were awake till 4 or 5 a.m. at night to do demos. It was all founder-led sales. If you realize that doing business with Multiplier is you have to deposit their salary. So these American customers would send like $50,000, $60,000 to a random company in Singapore with 3 people who do not look like them, who do not speak like them, at the middle of the night doing a demo. That's where we realized that people felt comfortable doing business with us and sending us large amounts of cash after looking at our platform. That's where we thought now we should scale. Then we raised our Series A, and then we never looked back after that, and we scaled. So
both of you guys don't come from a tech background, right? So how did you build so it looks like the platform was the turning point, and who's that? How did you build that platform?
So my third co-founder, Vamsi, who's my batchmate from IIT, he comes from product and tech background. And Suresh, my first ever hire was my CTO. It took me a long time to convince him. He used to be SVP of engineering in Lazada. Lazada is Flipkart equivalent in Southeast Asia. It's owned by Alibaba now. So it took me 2-3 months to convince him. He is a very experienced person. He comes from Sri Lanka, and he built a Miro-like product in Sri Lanka called Creately, Scale Rate, and so on and so forth. So I met him and I said, "Hey, this is what we are building." It took me a long time, but when he joined, between him and Vamsi, we had a very strong EPD background. His name is Hirash. So, and from day one, I would say, and we had money because we've raised seed money even before we started business. So we went very product heavy with first fundamental principles. And I'm very proud of what we have built. In fact, today also, when people ask me or investors ask me, what is that one thing separates you from your competitors? I would always say product. Like, we may not have the best brand name today, Suresh, because we're a very young company. We haven't even finished 2 years of our proper selling experience. But when people see our product, that just makes all the difference.
Now that you talk about product, how does AI see you are a there is a chat GPT era, and then there is both. Although we all knew AI for the last 10 years, I actually come from a rule engine background, and it was supposed to be. We used to proudly say it's like precursor to artificial intelligence and stuff like that. I have 3 patents in the space. So I'm actually a hardcore. Unlike you, I'm not a business guy. I came from a tech background, learned building this company by making a million mistakes. Okay. So it was okay. After ChatGPT, the line for AI is become strong.
Yeah.
Right. So there is, but you built the product pre ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Right now, ChatGPT has forced everybody to rethink what it really means to the product. So, how does ChatGPT, for example, disrupt not ChatGPT specifically?
AI.
ChatGPT just created that inflection point to look at AI more seriously.
Yeah.
The application of AI, but I think the broader question is AI.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting answer, because especially you said product is the differentiator.
Yeah. Great point, Suresh. On a very lighter note, I was talking to my co-founder the other day, Vamsi, and I said, Vamsi, I always feel very scared that we are building this company with such hard work that some technological breakthrough will happen and we shouldn't be caught off guard. And he says, don't worry, I'm there. I'm on top of these things. We've always kept abreast of what's happening because we want to provide the best solution to our customers. The use case of ChatGPT or any large language model in an employment setup is very clear. In our business, we deal with labor laws of 150 plus countries. Right? We have active people on our payroll in 120 countries, Suresh, today. Right? So customers reach out to us, employees, what we call members internally, reach out to us for all sorts of requests and questions and queries and doubts. Right? So and when people reach out for their salaries, for compliance, people are very anxious. They need reply quickly. Let's say your employee in Philippines reached out and says, hey, I think I haven't done my taxes properly. Do you think I'm non-compliant? Now that person wants to hear from Multiplier as soon as possible because he or she is anxious, right? So that's where we are piloting our first project with ChatGPT or LLM. And we have a lot of this information. If you go to our website, we have what we call created the talent wiki of 150 countries. So you can go to our website, you can go to talent wiki and you can click India, and you can get to know everything about employing in India, labor law, provident funds, section 180 and whatnot, right? You can get to know everything. Now we have so much information. We are using AI to deliver that information in the fast manner to our customers, to our members, so that they can get to know about the local labor law as fast as possible. Now, the issue with this is labor laws are constantly changing, right? And some of these models are built on 2021 data, 2020 data, and so on and so forth. So today we are using that to provide assistance to our support and success team rather than to customers directly.
Your business could be one of those businesses is a little bit protected by all this AI nonsense.
Keep praying every day.
Because it involves laws and labor laws and stuff like that, and that involves government.
Yeah.
Right. and there is that the chain is so deeply interwoven. It's it may be not worry too much, I guess. I'm just hoping. The real threat could be the notion of employment itself. See, the threat need not be from technology. The threat could actually come from the notion of employment. Like if people decide the notion of employment itself is not required, if ChatGPT basically throws a lot of people unemployed, then they will essentially go into some sort of a contracting gig economy. If they go into something like gig economy, then you're really not talking about employment anymore. You're only talking about, hey, I provide services for 100 hours and you just pay. I'm a consultant. You don't need to worry about compliance and all these problems anymore. Because you pay for what you get for, and I'm a consultant. I work for 10 different companies and I get paid and I'm fine. If I don't like to work, I don't like to work. That could be a bigger change, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that's a very interesting question, Suresh. We have a very strong point of view that on that I would love to share. So first of all, we also cater to that audience where we can help you pay your freelancers or contractors globally as payment agents, right? We help with that as well. But this is a very interesting point. And when I was starting this business, Suresh, when I was doing my due diligence, whether I want to spend 10 years of my life building this is one of the biggest questions that I wanted to answer for myself. How does employment look like 10 years from now? Right. And there were three fundamental points that gave me comfort that this is only going to get better. Right. One is, if you think about any government in the world, right, their revenue comes from two to three major sources. One is income tax, second is corporate tax, and third is your provident fund contributions.
No, actually, the major revenues actually come from indirect taxation.
Yeah. So, I mean, taxes, right? Like GST, corporate tax.
Indirect tax actually is the one that majorly governments benefit a lot from indirect tax, like GST and VAT and
Right.
manufacturing tax and all of that stuff.
Exactly.
So because in India, if you look at the number of people who pay taxes itself is very less.
In US, 401k is a big contributor to government treasury.
Correct. No, that is from a cash flow standpoint. Yes. Because they have the pension funds.
Yeah.
401k contributes directly to the pension funds, yes. Right? So the pension funds basically, that is more like a deposit collection. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, go ahead.
So I mean, maybe revenue is not the wrong word, but the government treasury or government spending is powered by these two engines, right? One is the tax engine, and the other is this social security engine. And if you think about a country like Japan, US, and so on and so forth, they all have large pension deficit, which means a growing population in a socialist setting where they need to take care of this population in a free healthcare. Germany, France are no exceptions. But they don't have enough treasury from the social contributions so that they can provide free education, free healthcare. So all these developed market governments are running massive pension deficits. If you just followed what happened in France, Macron brought this law where he wanted to extend the age of working. It met with massive resistance, and he had to call it off in the end of the day. So changing labor laws in these developed markets is very difficult in a democratic setting. In a setting where you have a gig economy worker who, by the way, does not pay social contributions, there is no provident fund, there is no pension scheme, and so on and so forth. So governments globally actively are cracking down on being able to pay contractors because they want. That's why they created a law called misclassification, where if you have any say on how your employee works, you cannot call them a freelancer. You have to call them an employee. That is one. The second is income taxes. More often than not, Suresh, in developing market economy, being a freelancer amounts to not paying income taxes. If you go to US, W1, W2 and all of those are very, 1099 are very, very nicely done. So it's easier to be a contractor and pay taxes, and it's linked to your social security. That doesn't happen in India.
So what you're really saying is this whole thing can get even more regulated, even more this thing. Yeah, I was looking at your website. You had two use cases in how it works, right? One is the freelancer payment model. Other one is the regular employment model. Actually, in fact, you should I would think like if AI is going to disrupt the employment notion and throw open a lot of people into gig economy, especially creative people. See, the food industry won't be disrupted by AI because right. No, I was basically looking. We were having an AI strategy meeting.
Yeah.
We were talking about what AI really means, and then we came back and said, "Hey, what all will not AI cannot touch?" Okay, like agriculture or food or housing. The way they are doing. See, all the management information systems, all the software that were developed to manage stuff, right? Things that are not directly connected to basic needs like eating, clothing, shelter, entertainment, communication, transport. These are all basic human needs, right? Those won't change. But everything else, all businesses created to manage the mess created by these basic needs. Like, for example, if you have to hire someone, if you have to produce someone, you have to hire someone. You have to hire someone, you have to manage their salaries.
Yeah.
If you have to manage their salaries, you need a system to manage salary. Then all the software is essentially managing that mess.
Correct.
Right? And all of those things AI can touch because these are all virtual and they're all creative stuff. There are no physical touch points.
Yes.
While AI can build software UIs because you can feed design patterns, digital version of a UI, right? So, and which means if you give hundreds of UI of, let's say, an employment onboarding form, AI can tell you what is the best one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can build that. But in software, I felt like architecture, for example, it's actually not recorded anywhere.
Yes.
There's no physical, digital version of the architecture which AI can learn, right?
Yes.
Like it can learn code. There is a code has a physical version. It has database. It has data models, and then it has UI and all of that pieces. But the architecture is something more abstract.
Yeah.
So these are we were actually thinking now since we were talking about AI, I thought I'll talk about it. Anyway, obviously customer distribution, like how many customers you have, like tell us a little bit about your business more, and now what is your acquisition model, go to market model? Is it like a sales driven inside sales model, or is it a field sales model? Is it a PLG or a self service? That'll be nice to understand. And how long does it? What is your sales sales cycle like?
Yeah.
And what is the average customer value? And what is all that? It would be nice to know.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Would love to share. I think maybe would love to share how we have evolved. Again, we are a very fortunate business. We are very blessed. We've grown to this scale in less than 2 years. So we started really selling around April, May 2021. I would say first 1 million of our revenue was fully outbound, cold emails driven inside sales. Then once we reached 1 million, we started to work on SEO and SEM, paid SEM. That engine started working along with the cold email outbound engine. Let's say around 5 million, that engine really worked out very nicely. Because that was working out very nicely, we scaled our SEO, right? We write hundreds of pieces of long form content. It's a great engine. We scaled our SEM, right? So predominantly our historically, I would say, our go-to-market has always been inbound, bottom-up, inside sales motion. 70% of our logos come from that. Then we have events, referrals, outbound, and so on and so forth. But we are a largely inbound, motion-driven company. Like I think maybe people talk about Freshworks that way, right? Then from that, we realized that we again, to go to the next stage, you need new engines, right? So this year, one of the engine that we have seen working out nicely is partnership engine. So we work with the Korn Ferry, Robert Walters, Morgan McKinley of the world, who resell our product to their customers. They say, okay, you know what, I do recruitment, but you know what, now I can do payroll for you as well. And we charge $300-500 a month. They charge their customers $2,000. So they're also making a nice margin because they charge based on percentage of salary, which is the traditional way of doing it. The other engine that we've started from Jan this year, which is a mid-market or enterprise outbound motion which has pure BDR cover, which gets no inbound cover, right? So a lot of events driven, a lot of brand marketing driven outbound engine, where they are now purely comped on revenue and not on logos. Traditionally, we've comped our sales team on logos because we found that our average revenue per customer is $20,000-$30,000 US. On an average, but again, we have variety of customers. We have customers paying 500,000, 700,000. We have customers paying 5-10,000 as well. So this engine we've piloted from the US. US is our biggest market. As I said, we have customers in 40-45 countries today. US accounts for 60-70% of our revenue. UK, Germany, France, Singapore, Australia, to some extent India. I would say you pick and you put most of the logos from India to the world SaaS, they will be using Multiplier. In terms of sales cycles, inbound sales cycle is roughly 45 days, 30-45 days. Outbound is slightly larger because again, you only talk to us when you need us. We can't create a need in you.
When you said 1 million and 5 million, I'm assuming it is the money that you own and not salaries. You're not talking.
No, this is pure revenue. I think salaries we are already in hundreds of millions.
Yeah. Because sometimes like Amazon, right? They make so much sales in GMV, but the money that they make might be much lower. So, you did come to SaaSBoomi this time?
No, I did not. Actually, again, one of the companies that I really respect and love is Freshworks. So again, being a Sequoia portfolio, they helped me get in touch with Girish. So I was talking to Girish. Girish told me that there's this SaaSBoomi event. So Suresh, I've never worked in India per se. I was always worked abroad. So my understanding of India SaaS ecosystem is just reading and meeting people. We are putting our first office, by the way. We are a fully distributed. But I'm putting first office in Chennai. Because I have a strong belief that you want to build SaaS company, it can only come out of Tamil Nadu. I'm a North Indian myself, but I believe like you want to build a SaaS Indian.
We are all Indians, by the way. So yeah, but I'm just saying, like, we just have the SaaS talent density.
Insane. So our first office is coming in Chennai.
I think we are coming closer to the 1 hour mark. It's fantastic. I think seems to be like a very energetic, lively person. You should talk more often and lot more stuff to talk. I think I have lots of questions. Actually, we can easily do this for like 2 hours. I was just telling my producers in SaaS, SaaSBoomi, this podcast producing team, we should switch to something like a Joe Rogan show kind of a stuff, right? Which is goes for like 2.5-3 hours.
Quite exciting.
Yeah, and then we ended up covering everything, all the details, everything, right? So I have lots of questions, but I just want to do some rapid fires. So, what is a podcast that you listen to frequently, if you have one?
Sadly, fortunately or unfortunately, I've never really I like to read books. Never really become a fan of listening to podcasts. Of course, I've listened to Y Combinator and so on and so forth, but I like reading books.
What is the recent book you read?
The Ride of a Lifetime by Bob Iger, Disney CEO. I used to intern with Disney. I just love that book.
Oh, okay. I haven't read this book. I should now. I read a lot of books too, but I'm more of an Audible Audible person, but I read massively on Audible. I have all the badges on Audible. I probably promoted Audible more than they promoted Audible. Seriously, I converted a lot of people to Audible, actually. No, actually, when somebody gives me a book, like an author who writes a book, and they said, "Is it available in Audible?" I also convert authors. I think you should come to Chennai and we can catch up a bit more. That's most of the stuff I had. I had a lot of other things. It will open up conversations goes much beyond timeline. But otherwise, it was fun talking to you. Last question: where are you headed with Multiplier? What does the next 2-3 years looks like?
Yeah. So I have this huge passion of Suresh. At one day, I would love to run a public company as a CEO. I always tell my team, my investors, my board that we are not a founder-run company. We are an executive-run company. because the difference is when I promise a business plan to my board, I promise it as a CEO. I don't promise as a founder, because founder can say, sorry, it's my company, what can you do? The CEO's job is always on the line, right? So we always try to run our company as an executive run company. When I saw Girish bringing Freshworks to public, and they're playing Indian national anthem, it gives me goosebumps. Like, I mean, money are always fine, it's important in life, but I would love to do that. That is something that is my dream. Next 2-3 years, we're gonna launch many products. I think we are in an industry where I pick up any adjacent products, it's a massive TAM. So our goal is to launch as many products as possible and bring to our customers.
Okay, man. All the best. I wish you super duper success. And when you come to Chennai, stop and we will go for a coffee or beer or whatever works for you.
Or dosa. I love MTR, so you can go for
Okay. Awesome. And I think MTR is Bangalore. In Chennai, you should go to Sangeeta.
Oh, it's Sangeeta, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We have MTR in Murugan and MTR, two of my favorite.
Murugan, yeah. Murugan, Sangeeta, and A to B.
Okay.
In Chennai, there's these two. I haven't seen an MTR in Chennai though.
Oh, okay.
It's mostly in Bangalore.
I see. I did not know that.
Yeah, this is amazing. Yeah, we learned a lot about your business and your go-to-market. Like you're talking about inbound marketing and the different challenges and how you scaled. You're still working and you still got seed funding and Series A and Series B and scaled it in 2-3 years into multi-million-dollar business. I wish you all the very best. You have a long list of investors. And the 2 tier 1 investors, Sequoia, Iger. Yep, it sounds fantastic. I'm so proud of you.
No, thank you, Suresh. I'm very happy to see you. I'm meeting Suresh for the first time. Suresh, we've been using KissFlow since the beginning of Multiplier. All our backend is all built on. So thank you so much. Really nice meeting you. And thank you for having me. And thanks, everyone. Really, really was a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to share your thoughts and feedback to hello@SaaSBoomi.com. You can access this and all other episodes of SaaSBoomi's podcast at www.saasboomi.com. Until next time, this is Suresh signing off from you. Bye-bye.